Our topic today for the Lunch and Look is Charlie Russell's Holiday Greetings. And we're going to be looking at a number of works of art that Charlie Russell made to celebrate the Christmas and New Year's holidays, such as this card, Good Wishes is a Broke Man's Gift. The works that are from our collection are in a special exhibition, Christmas from Charlie, that is currently on view in the lobby space of the Stark Museum of Art. It's a case exhibit with 6 items, but it gives us an opportunity to have a special holiday offering and to look through this exhibition and our program today as to what the holidays meant to the artist Charles M. Russell. And that gives us an opportunity to reflect about what they mean to us today. So we'll be looking at the works in this exhibition and a few from other collections as well. I do want to take a moment to review the career of Charles M. Russell to set him in his time. We see on the screen now a photographic portrait of Charles Russell taken in 1919. On the left is a photograph of Charles Russell taken at a period in his life when he's extremely successful. He's well known as a Western artist. In this photograph, he looks a bit stern. I don't think he liked formal photography. But on the right is more how he saw himself. It's a small watercolor sketch of Russell on horseback, riding with his friend Philip Goodwin. Goodwin is the figure to the right, Russell on horseback to the left. They're riding from a ranch that Russell owned at this point and back to his home in Great Falls, Montana. They're stopping along the way and visiting. An example of Russell with his friends, Russell as a very convivial person, and also an example of its watercolor style, and that he was constantly sketching and drawing and sending items such as this drawing to his friends. This was enclosed in a letter that he wrote to fellow artist Philip Goodwin as a reminiscence of time that they spent together. Russell is known as the cowboy artist because he came to Montana from St. Louis, where he grew up, when he was almost 16 years old. And he was from a middle-class Missouri family. He talked his family into letting him go west, which was an ideal that he'd had from a childhood. We could think his parents thought he would outgrow this, but instead he settled in Montana and it was his home for life. He found a landscape, he found an atmosphere, he found an ideal in Montana that was truly meaningful to him. For many years, he worked in outdoor occupations in Montana, working with a hunter, working as a cowboy, but he constantly drew and sketched and sought to be eventually a full-time artist. We see in this photograph here, made about 1914, Russell painting in his studio in Great Falls, Montana. He painted in a log cabin, even though he lived in a upper middle class frame house at that time. But he created an atmosphere for himself that evoked the Old West. And you can see that he filled it with items that he could use as inspiration, particularly the Indian clothing. His cowboy background was very important because he showed that he knew the life of the cowboy from experience. He was essentially self-taught as an artist, but as you can see in this photograph, he's learned the techniques that formal artists use. He's got his maul stick so he can paint the painting and rest his wrist away from the canvas itself. And he's painting one of his iconic paintings, Who's Meat, where the hunter has shot an animal for food, and but he can't reach it, and is facing a bear who sees it as also an opportunity for supper. Russell drew on the life of the West for his art. He worked in oils, and on the left is Signaling Approach of White Men, one of his paintings from 1896. And I want you to remember this date, because we'll look at it later as we look at some of his Christmas imagery. This was very early in his career, but he's in his formal career as a painter, but he's already exhibiting mastery of composition. He has grouped his Indians in a very solid triangle with the lead signaler waving the blanket in signaling to others in the distance, and the others watching. The title tells us they are watching the approach of white men, which of course is going to change their life considerably. By the time that Russell painted this work, of course, much had changed in the West. The Indian people that he knew were primarily settled on reservations and were being assimilated. Russell, however, preferred to look back to the past and view life as it was in the Old West. On the right is his sculpture, and it's notable that Russell, in addition to being a painter, also worked in 3 dimensions. He was known for constantly having a ball of wax so that he could model small figures. He worked in wax and then took his models to a foundry, and primarily his wife, Nancy Russell, worked with communication with his bronze foundry to produce editions of his work. Russell liked working firsthand and doing the initial work. He was less interested in the complicated artisan work of the bronze foundry, and something different from Frederick Remington, who took more interest in working directly with the foundry. But Russell was an accomplished sculptor, and he used the medium very effectively, as we see in the Bucker and Buckaroo, a sculpture of a cowboy and a bucking horse, obviously, and he has modeled it to show the twisting composition very beautifully. In addition to working in painting and sculpture, he's also known for his illustrated letters that he wrote to friends, which is going to be the theme of today. We're dealing with Christmas store imagery and Christmas cards and letters, but Russell wrote to friends all year round. And this is one of the many letters that he wrote to Philip Goodwin, who was the fellow artist that he traveled with on a sketching trip. And Russell wrote stories, such as Rawhide Rollins stories. So he was very adept at expression and communication in several media. But Christmas had a special joy and meaning to Charles M. Russell. And throughout his career, he portrayed Christmas scenes in cards and letters. This is one of the drawings that he did, possibly for a Christmas card that was not finished or sent, but it's a beautiful little drawing of a Santa Claus figure with his whip from riding his sleigh, greeting a young, very well-dressed woman. The work is titled Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas was written down in the lower right. And we have the little flourish of holly and a ribbon kind of set as so the image is set as a vignette within this design. The work is thought to date from about 1910 through 1913 or 14, and it's currently in the collection of the Buffalo Bills Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming, and we thank Karen McWhorter for these images from Buffalo Bill. The figure of the woman is unidentified. It's very similar to figures that he portrayed in other scenes and called Miss Montana, signaling a very elegant representation of the new Montana. And I think maybe that's part of his message in this scene, sort of the current culture greeting the Santa Claus of the past and always being open to the Christmas message, because that was very important to Russell. As we learned from his wife, Nancy Cooper Russell. Nancy Russell was a guiding force in Charlie Russell's artistic career. His marriage to her in 1896 was a pivotal moment in his career because she helped him and represented him in many ways as he went forward as an agent. And his marriage helped Russell to become an artistic success. And it was also a partnership that lasted and had great meaning to both of the participants. Nancy wrote a series of essays that she wrote as a memoir of her life with Charles M. Russell. Her story was never published exactly as she had written it, but recently scholars and collectors have gone together to bring out an edition of Back Trailing in Memory, the life of Charles M. Russell, artist, as told by Nancy Russell. And in that publication, the new book that goes back to her original manuscripts and reproduces them with additional information and commentary from Brian Dippy and Thomas L. Petrie. Her essay on Christmas in 1896 is one of the charming stories that gives us an insight into how Russell felt about Christmas. 1896 was the first year of their marriage, and their first Christmas together was particularly meaningful to both. Nancy Russell talked about how Charles Russell always approached Christmas with a childlike spirit and love of the mysterious. And she said, "Our first Christmas started with that spirit of mystery and secrecy, and we kept it throughout our lives." She talked about the fact that at that time they had no money. They lived in a very small, drafty house, and they gave each other very simple gifts. Nancy Russell knew that Charles Russell wanted house slippers to wear in their drafty, cold home. And so she bought a pair of felt slippers, and then she engraved them or embroidered them with initials in silk, and she hung them next to his stocking. She said that at 4 in the morning, they woke up. They were both so excited. It was Christmas morning, and she called it our first Christmas trotting in double harness, referring to the fact that they were yoked together for a lifetime, beginning on this Christmas day. And she described herself getting out of bed, going to her Christmas stocking, where she found an orange, she found hard candies and a $5 bill. And then hanging near her Christmas stocking, she found that she had a present that was also a pair of slippers, just like the one that she had bought for Charlie Russell. She said, "The exact mates, only smaller, of those that I have given my cowboy artist." She concluded, "We were happy over that Christmas with nothing more than I've described, because happiness comes from within." Charlie was as pleased as if he'd received $1 million gift. The simple things in life always did thrill him, and no one could live near him without taking on some of that childlike joy from simple things. This letter from Russell to Philip Goodwin, it's a fragment of a letter. We don't have the initial pages, but scholars have been able to identify Philip Goodwin as the recipient of the letter. And it's a wonderful example of Russell's illustrated letters, as well as it gives us insight into the Christmas celebrations that he continued to have with his family and friends. He says to Russell, "Old Sandy was good to us. I got lots of presents, among them the stuff that you rounded up. Bob Ben sent over some buffalo meat, a fine hump roast. I wish you'd been here. It was sure good food for a good feed. For a centerpiece in our Christmas table, I modeled a Laplander and reindeer." And then he includes a drawing of the centerpiece. He said, "I don't know much about either the deer or its driver, but no one else did. So there was no chance for an argument as the trotter of the Northland jogged along in snow made of salt and diamond dust, while we filled up on Christmas grub." This is a detail showing the wonderful little drawing of the reindeer with its bells, and the sled being pulled with the, as he called Laplander, today the people would be called Sami, with a delightful red cap on his head. The centerpiece that Russell described in the letter and that he drew in the letter still exists. The sculpture is in the collection of the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming. And you can see that Russell modeled these figures very realistically. He modeled them in wax, and he also added elements. You can see the snow down below, which of course is very important to the scene, which had some glitter. He described it as diamond dust. There is a product, diamond dust, that he could have potentially used to give glitter. He carefully made the sled and showed the twine wrappings that resembled the rope that would have pulled together. And this was all made for a one-time centerpiece. Fortunately, it was preserved for many years. This was an example of the type of work that Russell loved to do. He liked to make the figures. He often would make them in wax, and then he would paint them to be more realistic. Many of the sculptures that he made, like this Laplander driving reindeer, were never intended to be cast in bronze. Unfortunately, this one has never been cast, so it has been preserved in its pristine presentation as it was, almost like it was in 1908. So we can imagine the joy of sitting down to a Christmas meal with this delightful representation as the centerpiece on the table. Russell would make sculptures like this for Christmas gifts as well. It was known, some of them would be cast in plaster and painted, and he loved sharing his talents with others. He wrote in that letter to Philip Goodwin that he didn't know much about the reindeer that he was portraying, or the figure driving the sled, but I think actually that he probably saw photographs of Sami. This is one that I just found online from approximately the same time. I want to emphasize through this that Russell was very intuitively intelligent, and he was had wide-ranging interest. I think it's very likely that he saw a photograph of Finland or Sweden in a newspaper or in something like National Geographic, which by the time of 1908 was publishing many photographs. And he likely worked from something like that as inspiration. He was a modest individual, and yet he put great care and thought into even something as simple as a Christmas centerpiece, because the season was meaningful to him and art was meaningful to him. Returning to that letter. Christmas imagery was important throughout his career. He did scenes of that he painted of life in the West with Christmas inserted in the title. For example, this is Christmas for with meat on the trail. We find a hunter who has successfully brought down an elk, and he's going to provide a Christmas dinner. This painting was a watercolor done early in his career in 1805. A later work, but following on that theme, Christmas at Line Camp, where the hunters are riding in to join in a celebration of Christmas at the Line Camp, one of the outlying areas at a large ranch where cowboys would gather and have a convivial holiday meal. Now, Charles Russell himself was not conventionally religious, and we'll see that he did Western themes with cowboys. He did holiday imagery of Santa Clauses. He did a few representations that were along traditional Christian imagery. He did a number of cards or small illustrations with scenes of wise men coming to a place with a star. So that was as conventionally religious as his imagery at Christmas represented. Although throughout his life, he had reverence for religious people who truly had the spirit of humanity and care for and compassion for others. He, one of his most poignant letters, not a Christmas letter, but a birthday celebration, was to Brother Van, who was a Methodist circuit rider in Montana, who brought Christianity to the small towns of Montana. And Russell greatly admired Brother Van and wrote a letter to him recounting a time when they had a dinner in such a place as this Line Camp, where rough cowboys were gathered together, and Brother Van led them in prayer and brought tears to the eyes of many of these, as Russell described them, as hardened men. Russell often included humor, and this delightful watercolor sketch is also in the collection of the Buffalo Bills Center of the West. We see a cowboy who thinks Santa Claus is an intruder. He's the cowboy has clearly had a long night. He's got a red nose and a bottle under his bed. Alcohol is often a theme in a number of Russell's representations of Christmas cheer. In this case, he startles the Santa Claus, who's bringing him hopefully a new warm pair of socks, which he clearly needs. As I said, Russell made many of his Christmas cards and greetings with the theme of the cowboy offering a toast for Christmas. This is one, Best Wishes for Your Christmas, from 1914. A watercolor and a gouache on paper. It was probably the prototype for a card that may have been printed for others. And it's an example of how Russell combined the imagery with poetry that he wrote for the Christmas greeting. Notice that this one is written with very beautiful calligraphy style writing. The writing was probably done by his neighbor, Josephine Trigg, who was known for her calligraphy. And those of you who have seen some of Russell's handwritten illustrated letters know that his own style of writing and spelling were not as beautiful as this calligraphy. So he brought in help to finish his Christmas cards. And he wrote poetry for the message. Best wishes for your Christmas is all you'll get from me, because I ain't no Santa Claus, don't own no Christmas tree. But if wishes were health and money, I'd fill your buckskin poke. Your doctor would go hungry, and you never would be broke. Yeah, great poetry, but fun poetry. And immediately Russell signals some of the themes that will be important in his Christmas messages, that he wants to emphasize best wishes, not so much material gifts. We've already seen how in his own life that he enjoyed the small and simple things, as his wife described it. And with a humorous twist, he tells us that, well, that's all you're going to get from us this year, because I can offer best wishes, but not material gifts. Another card that Russell sent with the theme of a toast for Christmas. Here's another theme that he enters into his Christmas messages. Here's to the trail behind you, which wasn't all easy to ride, but I'm hoping your trail is long and smooth to the pass on the big divide. So this card, I think, is more of a New Year's card, where you're really thinking back on the past year. It's one that he sent to his friends, Mr. and Mrs. Richard Jones, who helped frame a number of Russell's works. He's reflecting on the past year and acknowledging that it hadn't been an easy year. And this is something that I think that we today can identify with, especially as we look back on a year of, and several years of difficulty as we've coped with COVID and lockdowns. So he's giving that New Year's greeting to look to the future, that your trail, your life is long and smooth. To the pass on the big divide. And he's thinking here of an intimation of the end of life, the big divide from what we experience here on earth to the future after we pass from this earthly life. This is one of the hand-drawn pen and ink with color drawings that Russell made as a Christmas card. He loved to send these greetings, and he's had so many friends over the years that eventually, soon he had to move to printed cards. And we see this one from about 1920 with a very similar composition of the cowboy on horseback, adding a toast. And in this case, it is a caricature of Russell himself. You see that typical broad face with, in this case, the big smile that is his usual personality and appearance. And he's toasting a bottle, although this is a theme in Russell's art, he himself had to give up drinking for health reasons. And he did very successfully, even though he continued to understand that it was a part of cultural observations and good wishes. So, and this card also is on that theme of not having a lot of money at the holiday time and sending out greetings. Although by 1920, Russell had a very successful career, but he stayed focused on the simpler things. Good wishes is a broke man's gift, that's true, but I know some that just their smile has grouchy givers skinned a mile, and coin won't buy the gift I'm sending you. It's the winning chord of life that falls for you. It won't come in your Christmas box. There's no use hanging up your socks. It's just long life and health I'm wishing you. And then the card was probably signed by Nancy, for both of them, Charles and Nancy Russell. You can see that in this example, although it was printed, it does have hand coloring added, which we believe was original to Russell. He may have added that little touch for people that he especially wanted to reach out to. This particular card was sent to the artist John Younghunter, and Russell and Younghunter were friends, although in later years they didn't see each other often, because Younghunter, a Scottish immigrant, moved to Taos, New Mexico, settled in New Mexico, but they had been friends, and Younghunter had visited Charlie Russell in Montana, and two people from very different backgrounds found camaraderie in their artistic interest and in their love of the Old West. Interestingly, we have in our collection another example of the same card that doesn't have coloring. And this one from the Provenance, we know, was sent to another artist, Joe Shirley, who was likewise an artist friend that Russell had met and knew through the years. And I don't know why Younghunter might have received a more special card than Shirley. But Joe Shirley wasn't completely left out of the wonderful Christmas messages, because in 1916, he received this hand-drawn Happy New Year card from Charles Russell. So he had a very special greeting as well, with Russell's self-portrait caricature on the front, poking a little fun at himself, but also something that was appropriate for Joe Shirley, because Joe Shirley did caricatures as a number of his works as well, sort of exaggerated representations. And so I think the two artists were speaking to each other. And I'll share with you, this is the reverse, and this, the Russell people wish the Shirley tribe all the good things that are coming, Charles and Nancy Russell. Again, probably all, but written there by Nancy. The comment, the name Shirley written down at the bottom, was probably added by a collector who previously owned this card. Russell continued to send greetings almost every year, and became more elaborate in the quantity, so that he did go to photomechanical printing. Here's one from 1924. In this case, we have more of a scene with two cowboys and a pack horse, one of whom is lifting the bottle again. but sharing Christmas greetings within the imagery of the work. Notice that the two riders are very close to each other. They're going in the same direction. Here's hoping your trail is a long one, plain and easy to ride. May your dry camps be few. May health ride with you to the pass on the big divide. So again, he is using the imagery of the West with the trail and wanting it to be easy to ride, essentially more of a New Year's greeting. Again, wishing for health, an important theme, especially at this point in Russell's career. And again, that reference to the pass on the big divide, looking toward the end of life and the chasm that occurs after we pass. And that theme is repeated again with his final Christmas card. Here's hoping the worst end of your trail is behind you. This was his card for 1926. Here's hoping the worst end of your trail is behind you. That dad time be your friend from here to the end, and sickness nor sorrow don't find you. This card is particularly poignant because he drew it probably in around October of 1926. And unfortunately, Charles Russell passed away before the card could be printed and sent out. His wife, Nancy Russell, saw through that Russell's practice of sending out holiday greetings would go forward. We notice from the poem itself that it is a little more bleak than even the one before. Sickness nor sorrow don't find you. By the time he drew this Christmas card, Russell knew that he had a terminal illness, and he passed from what was heart failure. Notice that in this work, the cowboys are going in different directions. We still have the bottle of good cheer, but the divide between the two cowboys is a little more prominent, perhaps signaling Russell's recognition that he would be riding in a different direction. When Nancy Russell sent out the letter, she enclosed a little card. Charlie Russell made this little sketch for our Christmas card this year, and I wish to add my appreciation for the flowers and your sympathetic measures to Jack and me. Jack was their son. So she had to send Christmas greetings out with her acknowledgments of the sympathetic messages and gestures that she had received. Many of us face the holiday times carrying our own sorrows, and Charlie Russell's message and Nancy Russell's efforts to deal with this remind us that we can find comfort and sympathy from the friendships around us. And this was something that Russell cherished throughout his life. I think that Christmas to him meant friendship. It meant conviviality. It meant joy in the simple things, in wishing good wishes for Christmas and the holidays. And I think we could take a lesson from the joy that he took and the way that he and his family approached the holiday spirit. Thank you.